Hi, good morning.
Welcome to All Hip Hop. I'm here today to talk to a great film director who has been making very provocative moves right now. So I want to introduce to our audience Mr. Justin Rhodes. What's going on, Justin? How you doing?
Bless. Thank you for having me.
So Justin, tell us about your new film and why it's so important.
Well, it's a wonderful play, a hip hop musical. It's a musical about systemic oppression, in the United States. I think it's the same story that's been told over and over. But I think it's important, one, because I think, right now in society, we're screaming at each other and we're not really, getting past the point that we want to get past. But everybody loves music, right? And specifically hip hop music and hip hop culture. And it's something about embedding a message in that because we're saying the same thing that we're screaming at people on forums and panels and everything like that. But when you embed it in the hip hop message, I think we're making a lot of leeway with it, and people are more susceptible to listen. And it's just something about the culture that people can understand and gravitate to. So I think it's just the messaging is the same, but I think it can penetrate deeper. And it's really about allyship because I think racism is ultimately a problem that Black people didn't create. So to be totally honest, us being, solely responsible for getting rid of it is kind of wild. So it's kind of focused on allyship and that our people, our white allies really need to be the ones that help us really lead the charge in eradicating racism and systemic oppression. So I know that's a mouthful, but that's why it's important.
I do think it's important. I love your film as it addresses um, finding your place as an ally, basically, or an appreciator of the culture or enthusiast of culture. I'm looking in the background and I see that you have a whole bunch of soul music, a lot of Stevie I see. What instantly jumps out for me is why do you think so many of our white brothers and sisters can associate or attach to our music, but not to our plight when our music has so much of our struggle within it.
Man, I think because it's different tiers. It's like it's because we are the culture. Like I said, same thing: music, dance, the arts. We honestly probably have created almost everything, and especially as it relates to being culturally dope or hip, as we call it. So it's easily enjoyable. It's easily to enjoy the things that we bring. It's easy to enjoy our inventions that a lot of times we don't get credit for, etc. It's easy. I don't know. I think because what I learned even throughout the process of shooting this film, it's just comfort levels that once you really start having to do the work and getting uncomfortable, we're unfortunately in this country used to being uncomfortable, and our counterparts, for the most part, on an overarching top tier level, they really aren't. I mean, not to just speak so broad, but when it comes to certain issues like having to walk in places and just for the color of your skin being downgraded, etc. And I just really have found that it's that when you don't have to be uncomfortable, a lot of people will choose their comfort over getting uncomfortable and getting in the mud. But I think it does take special people to be like, hey, no one is free when others are oppressed. I don't have to do this, but I need to. So I think that's why it's so hard for it's easy to take the good things out of our culture, but that struggle part is kind of like, but I won't go there.
Can an ally ever do enough? Or is being an ally, can we place that in context? And I'll give you an example, a little bit of pushback or a challenge for the movie. You mentioned there's a line about Elvis in the movie, right? However, Elvis being a racist has been disputed several different times, right? Including Jet Magazine in the 50s went to Elvis and interviewed him about it and interviewed the people around him, including like Mahalia Jackson and so many other people. And they all said it wasn't. And that even where the rumor started that he was in Boston, he said there's nothing that a black person can do but shine my shoes. Da, da, da. He never even been to Boston to do that. In fact, he was someone that supported the civil rights movement and also was reared and raised even before he was famous around people of color and always gave them their due. Still, he's plagued. Even Chuck D has walked back the whole Elvis is a hero to most. But
Mhm.
can you ever do enough? Or is your white privilege, your white skin privilege, being born in that space, always something you have to be sensitive as an ally to remember and really can't really get from under?
Well, I guess to speak on both things, like Elvis, I didn't want to come off in the movie as I specifically was like, okay, well, Elvis is just racist. Like, I just think he was the face and the mascot for whether he wanted to be that or not. You know, it was more speaking on the fact that he was crowned king for something that we invented. So I wasn't even, you know, in the movie just saying like, oh, Elvis is the worst, you know, him as the person, whatever. I was just saying what he was held out during those times for the same thing that Chuck Berry and so many other people were doing, and honestly, maybe even on a higher level, but they wasn't getting credited for it. So it wasn't that it wasn't so much Elvis the person, just more like Elvis the brand. So that's what I can speak on in that. As far as can you ever do enough, I put it like this: your life to me to be an ally. No, yeah, the same thing with us. Like even with the plight and we can't ever do enough for our people or for the world. You always want to wake up and give the world some redeeming value. So I just think with the stuff that we have inherited, if you're going to be an ally, it's not that, hey, well, I've done this, I'm gonna sit back, because we can't do that either. So neither can they. Like, so nah, if you choose, you know, because ultimately it's just about bettering the world in general. Of course, right now, racism is one of the biggest issues, has been the biggest issues. But we, even as African American people, people in general, we all have to get out there every day and make the world a better place. So nah, you can never do enough, because every day should be dedicated to bettering the world and bettering systemic oppression as well.
I love the fact that you said that every day should be an opportunity for you to better the world. We have a main character, and it's interesting that your main character actually goes through what I like to that I can immediately see is the Christmas Carol syndrome, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Talk
definitely.
to me about that choice to kind of incorporate that technique or that style or that into your film.
Well, when I thought about the title, I kind of thought about the Christmas Carol first, and then I went to the title. But you know, like A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life, they're kind of in that same, you know, silo as far as a film. So I was just thinking about like the same way that Ebenezer Scrooge like got woke in the system to how blessed he was and how great Christmas was. This kind of was like getting took through a journey through past, present, and future in the Christmas sense. I was like, well, let's do that to an ally that we're trying to groom, and do it in like a woke sense, like, because I feel that some people are good at heart. It's some people that just choose not to know, but there's a select few that just honestly sometimes when you talk to them, they just don't know, because history was hidden so well from us that it also was hidden from, you know, them as well. Like maybe their ancestors or some of their grandfathers know the deal because they help hide it, but there's some people that actually don't know. So I think just that kind of rebuilding and relearning and enlightening would be a way to kind of, because unlearning is the hard thing to do. It was just trying to help Scott unlearn so that, you know, through the courses of these different things, that he can, you know, come to grips and, you know, become an ally.
I would charge it's impossible to unlearn something. You can grow in your understanding of something, but I can't unsee something. So, it's difficult. I think that even in you kind of show this a little bit in a very funny way, right? Where when you look at certain things in his life, like the first thing was when he was in the crowd and they were partying and he wanted to say what everybody else was saying.
Yeah.
And he couldn't. And he knew that he couldn't, but he
But
still just did it. He knew something was wrong because when a guy checked him, he was like, "Oh yeah, right." But then also
yeah.
towards the end, his desire to run to Oakland, right, and to do, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. So often when our allies become woke, they do too much. Like they just try to jump in and be the savior, and they think that they're unlearning, but they still are pushing. I know it's best for that community, other than just I'm going to the community and learn what they need. I'm going to go this, and I'm going to save them, and I'm going to save them. So I think it's interesting that concept of unlearning or rewiring is kind of hard to do. What do you say about that?
I think that's dope, and I think that's a great take. That what's funny is that even when you create some art, like somebody else can even give you another perspective. Because I did write it as such, because like when when you wake up, you try to like undo so much of the stuff that you can't do. So that's kind of what Scott was doing. But it's funny that you look at it like that, because once you get your foot on the ground and you really understand it, his take probably would have been different. He probably would have just tried to not be the white savior in essence and just be amongst the people. But it's cool that you even look at it that way, because I didn't even take that out of it until you said that, and I was like, oh, that is true. That is true. But I think with anything, like even when I learned something that I was doing wrong, that when I come to a certain enlightenment, that's just for anybody. You want to kind of like make it all right in one day, when actually it's just a marathon that you have to be dedicated to. So yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's an interesting take.
Oh, absolutely. I live in Bed-Stuy, right? And I live in do or die Bed-Stuy. Like, the same folks that were there in the 80s and the 90s are still here, at least some of them. And some of them have been displaced by a bunch of other folk that have come into the neighborhood. And you cannot tell them that they don't know what's best for our schools. Like there was a flyer that they were handing out, and it said, let's support our Black neighbors, and fight for them. We need to come out and fight for our Black neighbors. They need us now. Did they ask us? Like, they were handing this out on the fly. We're here to protect you because you need us now. And again, I know the intention may have been well placed, but it also comes from a space of superiority. I'm coming in and I'm gonna fix your problem without even asking what your problem is and including you into it. So I think that
I said this here. I totally agree with you.
I think that when we look at the plight, it's a plight. It's a plight for life. There are things that are nuanced in there that, of course, are hip hop and tone, and of course you use it because it's a musical. And we haven't spoken too much about the musical. That seems unique to hip hop to express or to convey, right? Why did you choose hip hop as a medium versus maybe soul music? Or I see that you're very connected to R&B, early R&B. You could have used war, could have used anything. Why did you use hip hop, and what is your connection to hip hop culture?
Well, just I love all kind of music, but jazz, soul, it all invented, and hip hop came from it all. But even though like I love all kinds of music, but what I've got my production awards for is hip hop and rap. That's kind of my background, and that's my instrument. And it's honestly like the wave of the culture now. And I think for the foreseeable future, that's what it would be. So it's so many other ways to do it, but it's something about embedding that message in the 808 and that kind of booming rhythm. Because a lot of times, even on music today, you can go to the club and they can tell you to do all kind of crazy things that you probably wouldn't dance to if somebody just said it, in a conversation. But it's something about the beat that wraps people up. So if you can apply those same concepts, but put music that can wake people up and kind of really start connecting with the ancestors and connecting with ways to rid systemic oppression, it had that same effect. So I think that was the type of music to use, because we've had all kinds of other music saying the same thing. But when you can, it's almost like when you give a dog their medicine, you don't just give them the medicine straight up. You embed it in some dog food, some gravy, etc. But they still get what they need. So that's why I felt that hip hop and rap was the tool to use this musical, or to drive this musical rather.
What was your decision to place more of the musical element in certain parts of the movie versus like the full part? Was there a decision? Because it seemed very this half is this and this half is that. Was that a decision, a choice?
It kind of, what I didn't want it to do, I still wanted to have heavy, you know, I guess standard film elements. I didn't want it to be all the way like Lion King or Aladdin, where where the music was just super, super, super dominant. I wanted it to be that way, but I think the way I wrote the story, it had to be set up that way. I just kind of wanted to really kind of like lure them in, just to kind of establish that, yeah, it's a musical, but it's, kind of like your standard narrative film as well. So it was done by design, because typically, and I'm working on a sequel, because, typically a lot of times, even if you think about Lion King, Aladdin, stuff like that, they start out with the music, right? it's circle of life, so you're kind of drawn into that. But I kind of wanted the musical aspect to be the shock factor, right? Like, so we're setting up the story, it's cool, but then all of a sudden when the music hits, it kind of is like, oh yeah, this is a musical. So that was done by design, and it's dope that you noticed that.
No, absolutely. It was like the Wiz for me. So when you look at the structure of the Wiz, right, and this is going to lead to my next question. When you look at the structure of the Wiz, there is the family concept. I mean, there's two songs actually when Diana or Stephanie, well, Diana because it was a movie where she starts to feel left out, right? And then there's the other one about the family scene. So, but for the most part, it is the family. And then all of a sudden she's upset and she goes out racing to the streets trying to find Toto. Next thing you know, she's in Oz and it's music every other thing, right? It's almost like a miraculous transformation, right? And that's
Yeah.
almost like this pill, these pills that he takes, right? Tell me, talk to me about the dealer a little bit,
Mhm.
and then talk to me about the importance of um, it being everything that's the pill being everything that's destroying the black community, including
Yes.
crack. Like I was like, crack? Where did that come from? Crack? That was funny though, but
Thank you. And that was, also, I think film is a place where I can put all my talents in one, whether it's music, artistry or whatever. But, comedic timing is something that, especially as people see more of my films, that I will pride myself on. But I just think that part was, it's funny, but it's not funny. So that was the comedic element. The actor Kenny Earl, I'm sorry, he was wonderful. You know how you write a part, and I thought it in my head to be another way, but what he brought to that role was it
did he
was
have like a
really,
British accent?
man, I
Like
don't know what
he would be real hood, then he'd be like, I don't know. Like it was just
he does, bro. He does, stage plays, all that type of stuff too. So he's a well versed actor, and he gave that role even more range than I wrote it. And so kudos to him for really taking that role to the next level. I think, but as far as the comedic element, but it's serious though. It's like, okay, if you want the plight, here's everything. They tell us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, in essence, but just here's everything that we've had to experience that you haven't had to experience in this country, like, crack, Molly, just eat all of the little ploys that, get us further and further away from Marcel's and from betterment. We're fictitiously or magically putting this in this one pill. So that was a comedic aspect, but it also was kind of tongue in cheek as well.
well, I didn't get it until you just said it. Your lead character was so cavalier. So it's one of the things that we can't afford to be. So he didn't want the drugs at first. He wasn't looking for drugs, right? The guy's like, I got drugs for you. And he was like, I'm not looking for drugs. He's like, the more the guy says, he says, sure, I'll just take them. I don't care. I'll take them. And then he took them. Black people can't afford to just take anything just because it's there, right? If we're not doing it, like you can't, like, I was like, wow, he has the freedom to just do whatever he wants because it's a whim. And I thought that you captured that really well. I went back to the Wiz because somebody that you worked with, Talib Kweli, the Wiz was his first professional gig. He was the baby in the Wiz. He also was one of the babies up in the sky when Lena Horne was singing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know a bunch about the big homie, but I didn't even know that. So man, you schooling me. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's super dope.
Talk to me about your hip hop influence, like those people who have really shaped you as an artist.
Man, production wise, I think Timbaland and Pharrell coming up, and Dr. Dre. I got the pleasure man, that's a story. We got to have another interview on that, on how immaculate that experience was. But being a producer and an artist, and wearing a lot of different hats, there's so many people that inspire me, and it's a blessing to get to meet some of those people like Talib. He's been shown nothing but love to me. He's been instrumental. Royce the 5'9" is a big brother of mine. Man, Lecrae show me so much love, and man, it's just a blessing. And DOC, let me mention him, because he's from my same hood. It stands for Dallas Oak Cliff, and that's where I'm from, Oak Cliff. But the DOC, not just with all his great work with Dr. Dre and NWA, but him seeing something in me, and being a liaison to push Dallas culture forward. He's been a great influence to me as well. My favorite artist in group of all time was Outkast, and is Outkast. So just growing with them, and you know, getting into their music and just seeing how they reinvented themselves so much, and it was just all about their artistic expression and not sacrificing the art. That really has been the core of my production tree, which is the root of my career tree. So everything I do, whether it's film, music, or whatever, is anchored in what I would say is my most dynamic skill, which is music production. So yeah, man, just I think, and my favorite artist right now is Kendrick Lamar. We need something else from him real soon, but I just really, it's those artists that take you to a place and you remember where you were when you heard that song. Because I think it's a lot of good music out now, but you know, the standard stuff is interchangeable to me. But the artists that really influence me are those artists where you hear a song, it's not just rhythm and the beat, but it's time. It takes you to a place and time, and you can play that song um, the same way you could play it in 96, you could play it now. So those are, I could go all day with my artistic influences, but I have a lot of them, and I've been blessed to meet and work with a lot of them as well. So
I'm really connected to the battle rap community, and there's this female battle rapper. Her name is Robin Rhymes. She's out of Dallas.
yeah, I know Robin. I know Robin.
Shout out to Robin Rhymes. She's a firecracker.
Yeah, she's crazy in a good way.
And maybe in a good way. She's crazy. She's dope. Like she's so super dope. So shout out to Robin Rhymes. How do you know Robin?
Huh?
How do you know Robin?
Man, just through the scene, through the scene. I was you say you're connected to the battle rap community. I'm connected. I got my start as far as really start building my name in beat battles. You know, we was kind of some of the first beat battles with the, you know, Red Bulls, and we kind of ushered that wave in, me and a lot of my homies. So a lot of the beat battles, I would see Robin, and we would speak. She would show love. We supposed at some point many years ago potentially going to work together, but yeah, I met Robin through the Dallas music scene when it was you know, kind of budding.
Robin better get that music up and connect to Mr. Rhodes and get this popping. You know,
Yeah,
she's sweeping. She's sweeping.
I haven't seen her in a minute though. I'm like, but I know she's doing her thing. But yeah, shoot, tell her to pull up.
She is winning. It's she against this another female out of Texas. I think she's from San Antonio, but she stays in Houston. I'm not sure. Her name is Casey J. She's part of the Bardashians. It's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. I love that you're connected to the culture, and I love that your movie incorporates not just hip hop culture, but I see a lot of African overtones in your expression of hip hop. As we're wrapping this up, talk to me. Switch this, reword it. If you had a auditorium full of ancestors viewing your film, what is it that you hope that they walk away from?
I think, man, I love questions that I didn't expect and they really give me to think. What I would, they're not forgotten, like honestly, and that even though I haven't set foot in Africa a day in my life, what they brought to the culture and what they have done is still in us. Because I need to go to the motherland, but I've never been. But it's just something about how I gravitated to, you know, tribal chants, tribal music, and all that stuff. It was just in me. And some of my biggest placements, like "Welcome to America," that me and S1 produced for Lecrae, that I'll be making money and getting sync fees off that song for the rest of my life, and that was driven by ancestral music. So at the end of the day, the main thing would just to say thank you, first of all, because it's in our DNA, like it really is. For me to just understand the beat and understand why it makes sense, it's like the things that they put into the air, into the universe, are in their descendants. So I just would say thank you, and I'll just let them know that the torch of their music, because so much of our strength and passion and ability to overcome is in that culture, just letting them know that we're carrying it on.
I thank you, Justin, for spending this time with us. I really, really, really appreciate you for doing such an impactful film. We're going to drop this into the all hip hop chamber of iconic interviews. Thank you for hanging out with allhiphop.com. We invite you to come back, and we also invite you to check out the movie. Hey, Justin, give us a shout out to your movie. Give us a tag.
Okay, It's a Wonderful Plight, a hip hop musical, comes out June 15th. You can pre-order it right now. It went from indie film to the USA Today. It's one of the top films of summer 2021. We're doing a great big press run. We're going to be out there. And I'm telling you, this film is magical. Once you see it, I mean, you'll understand the depths of it. So go to Amazon Prime Video right now. Check it out. It's a wonderful play.
It is a wonderful plight and it is amazing, magical. That's the word for it. It's magical. See y'all later. Allhiphop.com.